Park Jin-ho stood alone in the center of the Great Hall. Above him, 12 alien species looked down from their high seats. Their eyes held no warmth. Their faces showed no mercy. He had served the Galactic Union for 30 years. He had given them his youth, his strength, and his loyalty. Now they were throwing him away like garbage. The High Speaker of the Valkyrie rose from his throne. His name was Orin, and his silver skin glowed under the lights of the council chamber. He was tall and thin, with eyes like black stones. When he spoke, his voice echoed through the hall like thunder. "The Galactic Union has reached a decision," Orin said. "After 200 years of integration, we have determined that humans are not suitable partners for our civilization. You are too emotional, too unpredictable, too aggressive. Your presence endangers the stability of our society." Gin-ho felt his heart turn cold. He wanted to speak. He wanted to scream. But the rules of the council did not allow him to interrupt. Therefore, Orin continued, "All humans are hereby expelled from Union territory. You have 90 days to leave. No appeals. No exceptions. This decision is final." The other species nodded their heads. The insectoid Mora clicked their approval. The aquatic Thelon bubbled their agreement. Not one voice rose in defense of humanity. Not one hand reached out to help. Jin-ho looked up at them. These were beings he had worked beside. Beings he had called friends. Beings he had saved in times of crisis. Now, they looked at him like he was a disease. "May I speak?" Gin-ho asked. Orin waved his hand dismissively. "You may. We have served this union faithfully," Gin-ho said. His voice was calm, but inside he was burning. "We have built your ships. We have healed your sick. We have fought your wars. We have solved problems that no other species could solve. And this is how you repay us?" "Your services are no longer required," Orin replied. "We have learned enough from you. We can continue without you. You think so?" Gin-ho asked quietly. "We know so." Orin smiled. It was a cold smile, full of pride and contempt. Humans have always overestimated their importance. The galaxy existed for millions of years before you crawled out of your caves. It will continue for millions more after you are gone. Jin-ho said nothing more. There was nothing left to say. He turned and walked out of the council chamber. The doors closed behind him with a sound like a tomb ceiling shut. Across the galaxy, the news spread like wildfire. Captain Kong Sora was on her ship when she heard. She was a decorated officer in the Union fleet. She had spent 15 years defending alien worlds from pirates and invaders. Her crew was mixed humans and aliens working side by side. Or at least they had been. She watched the broadcast in the ship's common room. Around her, human crew members stood in shocked silence. The alien crew members would not meet their eyes. 90 days, Sora said quietly. 90 days to pack up our lives and disappear. Her first officer, a young man named Lee Duan, clenched his fists. "This is wrong. We've given everything to them. Everything." "No," Sora said. "But what can we do?" "Fight them. There are trillions of them, and billions of us. We would lose, so we just accept it?" Sora looked at the screen. Orin's face was still there, repeating his speech about galactic purity. She wanted to put her fist through it. "We accept it for now," she said. "But we remember. We remember everything." On a space station at the edge of Union territory, Dr. Yoon Tae-ho received different orders. He was the head of the Union's largest medical research facility. For 20 years, he had worked on cures for diseases that killed millions. He had saved more lives than he could count. Now, a Union official stood in his office, holding a data pad. "You have 1 week to leave," the official said. He was a Valkyrie, just like Orin. His tone was polite, but firm. "All your research belongs to the Union. You may not take copies. You may not take notes. You will leave everything behind." Tae-ho stared at him. 20 years of work, 20 years of my life, and you want me to just hand it over?" "It was always Union property," the official said. "You were merely the tool that created it." A tool? That was what they thought of humans. Tools to be used and then thrown away? What about my patients? Taiho asked. I have people depending on treatments only I understand. The official shrugged. They will adapt, or they will die. Either way, it is no longer your concern. Taiho wanted to argue. He wanted to refuse. But armed guards stood outside his door. He had no choice. Fine, he said. I'll go. But remember this moment. Remember what you're throwing away? We will remember nothing, the official said, because there is nothing worth remembering. On Earth, the World Council met in emergency session. Leaders from every nation gathered to hear the news and decide humanity's response. At the head of the table sat President Choi Yuna. She was a small woman with gray hair and sharp eyes. She had led humanity through many crises. This was the worst. They have given us 90 days, she said. 90 days to bring home every human from every corner of the galaxy. It will be the largest migration in our history. Can we fight back? One leader asked. No, Yuna replied. We are outnumbered and outgunned. If we fight, we die. Then what do we do? Yuna stood up. Her eyes swept across the room. Every face was watching her. Every heart was waiting for hope. We leave, she said. We take our people and we go. We leave their systems, their stations, their worlds. We take nothing that belongs to them. She paused. But we take everything that belongs to us. Our knowledge, our skills, our memories, our pride, and then what? Another leader asked. Then we survive. We rebuild. We grow stronger. Yuna's voice hardened. They think we are nothing without them. They think we are weak. They think we will crawl into a corner and die. They're wrong. She looked out the window at the stars. Somewhere out there, alien species were celebrating the removal of humanity. They thought they had one. They thought they were free of the human problem forever. They had no idea what they had just done. They don't want us, Yuna said quietly. Fine, we'll go. But we won't forget. And we won't forgive. One day they will understand what they have lost. One day they will come to us, begging for help. And on that day, we will decide what kind of species we truly are. The great human exodus began. Ships by the thousands lifted off from alien worlds. Families packed what little they could carry. Workers said goodbye to jobs they had held for decades. Soldiers removed their Union uniforms for the last time, and as they left, they looked back at the civilization they had helped build. They looked back at the species they had served and protected. They looked back at the friends who had betrayed them. Then they turned their faces toward Earth, toward home, toward whatever came next. 6 months had passed since the humans left. The Galactic Union celebrated their departure like a holiday. Statues of Orin were built on a dozen worlds. Songs were written about the glorious purification. The aliens told each other that a new golden age had begun. They were wrong. The first problems appeared quietly, like small leaks in a great dam. A communication relay failed on the outer rim, then another, then another. Within weeks, entire sectors lost contact with each other. Messages that once traveled instantly now took days or weeks to arrive. Velkari engineers rushed to repair the systems. They studied the quantum relays that humans had designed. They ran diagnostics. They checked every wire and every circuit. Everything looked correct, but nothing worked. Humans built these systems, one engineer reported to Orin. They did not leave instructions. They did not write manuals. They just knew how to make them work. Orin dismissed the concern with a wave of his hand. Then figure it out. You are the most advanced species in the galaxy. Surely you can understand technology built by primitive humans. The engineer said nothing, but in his heart, he knew the truth. The humans had not built these systems from logic alone. They had built them from instinct, from intuition, from a strange ability to feel when something was wrong and fix it without understanding why. The Velkari had no such ability. They could only follow rules and procedures. And there were no rules for this. Food shortages came next. The Union's agricultural systems were marvels of technology. Automated farms produced enough food to feed trillions. Climate controllers kept conditions perfect. Harvesting machines worked without rest. But all of these systems had been programmed by humans. And humans had a way of making small adjustments that no one else noticed. A little more water here, a little less heat there. A slight change in nutrient mix. Tiny modifications that kept crops healthy and yields high. Without humans to make these adjustments, the systems ran exactly as programmed. And exactly as programmed was not good enough. On 3 colony worlds, crops began to fail. Plants grew weak and yellow. Harvests dropped by half. Then by 3/4, then to almost nothing, Orin received the reports in his throne room. His silver face showed no emotion, but inside he felt a cold fear growing. "Send more supplies from other worlds," he ordered. "Other worlds are having problems too," his advisor replied. "The agricultural failures are spreading. We do not have enough food to share. Then find a solution." "We are trying. But the humans who designed these systems are gone. We do not know how to fix what they built." Orin slammed his fist on his throne. "We are the Valkyrie. We ruled this galaxy when humans were still living in trees. We will not be defeated by farming problems." But farming problems were only the beginning. On the Mora homeworld, a plague appeared. It started in a small village and spread like fire through dry grass. Within weeks, millions were infected. Within months, tens of millions were dead. Mora doctors worked desperately to find a cure. They analyzed the disease. They tested treatments. Nothing worked. The plague was unlike anything they had seen before. It seemed to change and adapt, always staying one step ahead of their medicine. In desperation, they searched the Union medical databases for help, and there they found a terrible discovery. Dr. Yun Tai-ho had been working on this exact disease. He had spent years studying it. He had been close to developing a universal vaccine that would protect all species. His research was detailed, brilliant, and nearly complete. But when the humans were expelled, his research was classified as human property, and human property was deleted from Union systems. Every note, every test result, every breakthrough, gone forever. The Mora ambassador confronted Orin in the council chamber. His insectoid body trembled with rage and grief. "You killed us," the ambassador said. "You threw away our only hope because you hated the species that created it." "We did not know," Orin replied. His voice was defensive now, uncertain. "We could not have predicted this. You did not try to predict it. You were too busy celebrating your purity to think about consequences." The ambassador turned to the other species. "This is what the Valkyrie have brought us. Death and suffering. And for what? For pride? For hatred? For nothing." The council erupted in argument. Species that had stood together for centuries now turned on each other. Old grudges surfaced. Old wounds reopened. Without human diplomats to smooth tensions and find compromises, every disagreement became a fight. The Thelon accused the Valkyrie of hoarding medical supplies. The Valkyrie accused the Thelon of stealing communication equipment. The Mora blamed everyone for their dying people. Border skirmishes broke out. Ships fired on ships. Blood was spilled among species that had been allies for generations. Orin watched his great union begin to crack. He told himself it was temporary. He told himself they would adapt. He told himself humans were not important. But deep in his heart, he was beginning to doubt. Far away on Earth, humanity was not falling apart. They were rising. Engineer Han Minji worked in a laboratory on the dark side of the moon. She was young, brilliant, and angry. The Union had thrown her out of her job designing starship engines. They had called her work inferior. They had said aliens could do it better. Now she was proving them wrong. "Look at this," she said to her team. She pointed at a holographic display showing a new engine design. Faster than light travel, but 50% more efficient than anything the Union has. "We built this in 6 months. They could not build it in 600 years. Her team cheered. They were all former Union workers, all expelled for being human. Now they were using their skills for Earth, instead of aliens who did not want them. Admiral Baek Sun-woo was rebuilding Earth's defense fleet. He had served 30 years in the Union military. He knew their tactics, their weapons, their weaknesses. Now he was using that knowledge to make humanity strong. We were always holding back, he told his officers. We followed Union rules. We respected Union limits. We never showed them what we could really do. He smiled grimly. Those days are over. Ships rolled off production lines. Weapons were tested and improved. Soldiers trained harder than ever before. Earth was preparing for a future where humanity stood alone. President Choi Yuna watched all of this with quiet satisfaction. She received reports from spies still inside Union space. She knew about the failing communications. She knew about the food shortages. She knew about the plague and the political fighting. They thought they did not need us, she said to her advisors. Now they are learning the truth. Every system they rely on has human fingerprints. Every solution they need has a human origin. They can delete our research. They can erase our names. But they cannot erase what we built into the foundation of their civilization. What do we do now? An advisor asked. We wait, Yuna replied. We grow stronger, and we watch them fall. Across the stars in his throne room, Orin received another report. 17 star systems had declared states of emergency. Food riots had broken out on 4 worlds. The plague had spread to 3 more species. Communication networks were failing faster than they could be repaired. We do not need the humans, Orin said to himself. His voice was barely a whisper. We do not need them. But even he no longer believed it. 2 years after the expulsion, the Galactic Union was dying. War had come. Not from outside enemies, but from within. The Mora and the Thelon, once close allies, now fought over water rights in a disputed star system. Their battle fleets clashed in the darkness of space. Thousands of ships, millions of soldiers. Death on a scale the galaxy had not seen in centuries. Other species chose sides. The Valkyrie supported the Thelon, hoping to keep some control over the crumbling Union. Smaller species joined the Mora, hoping to break free from Valkyrie domination. Within months, 4 species were at war. Within a year, 8 Admiral Krath of the Thelon fleet stood on the bridge of his flagship. His blue skin was pale with exhaustion. He had not slept in 3 days. Around him, officers shouted reports of enemy movements, failing systems, and mounting casualties. Engine room reports critical damage, an officer said. We are losing power. What is wrong? Krath demanded. We do not know. The engine simply stopped working properly. Our engineers cannot find the problem. Krath cursed under his breath. This was the 3rd ship this week to suffer mysterious engine failures, and he knew exactly why. Human mechanics had maintained these ships for generations. They had learned every quirk, every weakness, every strange noise that meant trouble. They could feel when an engine was about to fail. They could fix problems before they became disasters. Now they were gone, and the ships were falling apart. Do what you can, Krath ordered. We must hold this position. But holding positions was becoming impossible. Across the war zone, ships from every species were breaking down. Communication systems failed at critical moments. Weapons misfired. Navigation computers gave wrong coordinates. The Union's mighty fleet was being destroyed not by enemy fire, but by its own failing technology. On the Mora homeworld, the plague had killed 200 million. Hospitals overflowed with the dying. Mass graves stretched for kilometers. The surviving population lived in terror, waiting for death to find them. A young Mora doctor named Vel worked without rest. She had studied medicine for decades. She was one of the best in her species. And she could do nothing. We need the human research, she told her colleagues. Dr. Yun Tai Ho was so close to a cure. If we could just recover his work. It was deleted, another doctor replied. The Valkyrie made sure of that. They said human knowledge was contamination. Then we are all going to die because of their pride. Vel walked through the hospital wards. She saw children crying for parents who would never wake up. She saw elderly patients gasping their last breaths. She saw young people in the prime of life, being carried to the burial pits. She thought about the human doctor whose work could have saved them all. She wondered where he was now. She wondered if he knew what was happening. She wondered if he would help, even after everything his people had suffered. She did not know the answer, but she hoped. On the Valkyrie homeworld, chaos had come. The species that had led the expulsion of humanity was now turning on itself. Citizens blamed their leaders for the disaster. Leaders blamed each other. Protests filled the streets. Riots followed. High Speaker Orin stood at his window watching his capital burn. Smoke rose from a dozen fires. Crowds chanted for his death. His guards were barely holding the palace gates. "What did it come to this?" he whispered. His advisor stood behind him. The old Valkyrie had served 3 high speakers. He had never seen anything like this. "You know how," the advisor said quietly. "We thought we were superior. We thought we could do anything the humans could do. We were wrong." "I did what I thought was right," Orin said. "I did what our people wanted. Our people wanted pride. You gave them pride. But pride does not fix engines. Pride does not grow food. Pride does not cure plagues." The advisor sighed. The humans were strange creatures, emotional, unpredictable, sometimes foolish, but they had something we do not have. They could adapt. They could improvise. They could care about problems that were not their own. We called these weaknesses. We were fools. A crash echoed from below. The crowd had broken through the first gate. "What do we do now?" Orin asked. Before the advisor could answer, the doors burst open. Armed Valkyrie rushed in, but they were not guards. They were rebels. Their leader stepped forward, a pistol in her hand. "High Speaker Orin," she said, "the people have judged you. The sentence is death." Orin turned to face her. He thought about running. He thought about begging. But what was the point? His civilization was dying. His legacy was ruin. Perhaps death was a mercy. "Do what you must," he said. The pistol fired. Orin fell. His last words were barely a whisper, heard by no one. We were fools. News of Orin's death spread across the galaxy. It brought no peace. The wars continued. The plague spread. The famines worsened. The Galactic Union, once the mightiest civilization in known space, was collapsing into darkness. And the darkness brought refugees. They came in ships held together by hope and desperation. Alien families who had lost everything. Soldiers who no longer had armies to serve. Scientists who no longer had laboratories to work in. They fled the chaos of Union space and headed for the one place that might accept them. Earth, Admiral. Kong Sora commanded Earth's border patrol. She had spent 2 years watching the Union fall from a distance. Now, it was arriving at her doorstep. Thousands of refugee ships approaching, her officer reported. They are requesting asylum. Sora looked at the screen. She saw the ships, damaged and overcrowded. She saw the faces of aliens through viewport windows. Many of them were species that had voted for humanity's expulsion. Some had personally thrown humans out of their jobs, their homes, their lives. Now they were begging humans for help. "What are your orders, Admiral?" The officer asked about the day she had watched the council vote against humanity. She thought about the friends who had looked away when she needed them. She thought about the pain and anger she had carried for 2 years. She could turn these ships away. She could let them drift in space until their air ran out. She could take revenge for everything humanity had suffered. She could, but she would not. "Open the borders," she said. "Let them in, Admiral." "Are you sure?" "I am sure." Sora watched the refugee ships begin to move toward Earth. "They treated us like animals. They threw us out like garbage. They laughed when we left. And now they need us." She paused. "We could be like them. We could let hatred guide us. But we are not like them. We are human." On Earth, President Choi Yuna addressed the world. Behind her, the first refugee ships were landing. Alien faces looked out at a planet they had once despised. "They cast us out," Yuna said. "They called us lesser. They said we were a disease to be removed. Now they come to us, broken and desperate, begging for mercy." She paused. The world waited. We could turn them away. Some would say we should. They did not show us mercy. Why should we show them any? She looked at the refugee ships. Because that is not who we are. We are human. We feel. We care. We forgive. Not because others deserve it, but because forgiveness is what makes us strong. Hatred makes you weak. Hatred makes you blind. Hatred makes you destroy the people who could have saved you. She turned back to the cameras. We will accept these refugees. We will give them food and shelter. We will heal their sick and protect their children. And when they ask why we are helping them after everything they did to us, we will tell them the truth. Her voice grew strong. We help because it is right. We help because we can. We help because we are human, and this is what humans do. The galaxy pushed us out. Now we will show them what they lost. We will show them the best of humanity. And perhaps, in time, they will learn from us. The refugees landed on Earth. Alien feet touched human soil. Alien eyes looked at human faces. And slowly, carefully, something new began to grow. Not conquest. Not revenge, something better. 5 years had passed since the expulsion. The Galactic Union no longer existed. In its place were scattered fragments of broken civilizations. Billions had died in the wars, the plagues, and the famines. Half of the alien species in the galaxy were now refugees living in human space. Earth had become the new center of galactic civilization. The Valkyrie were the last to come. They had held out the longest, too proud to ask humans for help. But pride could not feed their children. Pride could not heal their sick. Pride could not rebuild their shattered world. In the end, even pride had to bow before desperation. A small ship landed on Earth, carrying a Valkyrie delegation. Their leader was a young female named Selka. Her silver skin was dull with exhaustion and grief. She had grown up believing humans were inferior creatures. Now she was here to beg those creatures for mercy. Park Jin-ho met her at the landing platform. He was older now, his hair touched with gray. He had become Secretary of Galactic Affairs, the human responsible for managing relations with all the alien refugees. It was a job that would have been impossible 5 years ago. Now, it was the most important position in the galaxy. Ambassador Selka, Jin-ho said, bowing slightly. Welcome to Earth. Selka looked at him. She recognized his name. He was the one who had stood before the council when her father pronounced humanity's expulsion. He was the one who had walked out of the chamber in silence while the aliens celebrated. You know who I am, she said quietly. Yes, you are Oren's daughter. Selka flinched at her father's name. I am here to apologize on behalf of my people. What we did was wrong. What my father did was wrong. We have paid for our mistake with blood and suffering. Now we come to you, not as masters, but as beggars. Jin-ho was silent for a long moment. He thought about the day of the expulsion. He thought about the years of exile. He thought about the hatred that had burned in his heart. He could reject her. He could make her kneel. He could take revenge for everything her species had done. But what would that make him? Come, he said finally. Let us talk. They walked through the streets of the capital city. Aliens of a dozen species walked alongside humans. Children played together in parks, their laughter mixing without regard for species or skin color. Shops sold food from 100 different worlds. Signs were written in dozens of languages. How do you do this? Selka asked. How do you live with so many different species? We have always been good at adaptation, Jin-ho replied. We have always been curious about others. We have always believed that different does not mean dangerous. We believed it did, Selka admitted. We thought uniformity was strength. We thought purity was power. We were wrong. They reached the government building. Inside, other human leaders waited. President Choi Yuna was there, along with Admiral Baek Sunwoo and Dr. Yoon Tae-ho. They were the people who had rebuilt humanity after the expulsion. Now they would decide the fate of humanity's former oppressors. Selka presented her formal request. The Valkyrie wanted food aid, medical supplies, technical assistance. They wanted to join the new civilization that humanity was building. They wanted a second chance. Why should we help you? Admiral Sunwoo asked. His voice was hard. He had lost friends in the chaos following the expulsion. He had not forgotten. "Because you can," Selka replied. "Because we cannot survive without you. Because... She hesitated. "Because my father was wrong about everything. Humans are not inferior. You are not a disease. You are the only reason any of us are still alive." Dr. Yuan Taiho leaned forward. He remembered being ordered to abandon his research. He remembered being called a tool. Now the species that had thrown him out was dying from a plague he could have prevented. "I was working on a cure for the disease that killed your people," he said. "Your government destroyed my research. They deleted 20 years of work because it was human contamination." Selka lowered her head in shame. "I know. I cannot undo what they did. I can only ask you to help us, despite what they did." Taiho looked at her for a long moment. Then he sighed. "I remember most of my research," he said. "It is in my head where your government could not delete it. I can recreate the vaccine. I can save your people." He paused. "Not because you deserve it, but because I did not become a doctor to watch people die." Selka felt tears forming in her eyes. She had expected rejection. She had expected revenge. She had not expected kindness. "Thank you," she whispered. "Thank you." President Choi Yuna made the final decision. "We will help the Velkari," she announced. "We will help all the species that ask for our aid. Not because they were good to us, because they were not. Not because they deserve it, because they may not. We will help because it is who we are. Humanity does not exist for revenge. Humanity exists to make things better." Within weeks, human ships entered former Union space. They carried food, medicine, and engineers. They carried teachers, doctors, and diplomats. They carried hope. Dr. Yun Taiho returned to his old research station. It was abandoned now, half of its equipment broken or stolen. But he got to work anyway. Within 6 months, he had recreated his vaccine. Within a year, the plague that had killed hundreds of millions was under control. Engineer Han Minji led teams to rebuild the communication networks. She worked alongside Velkari and Mora engineers, teaching them the tricks and intuitions that humans used. Some of them learned quickly. Others struggled. But slowly, the networks came back online. Admiral Baek Sunwoo negotiated ceasefires between warring factions. He used no threats, no weapons, no demands. He simply listened to both sides, found common ground, and helped them see that peace was better than war. It was something no alien species had been able to do. They could not understand why enemies would stop fighting just because someone asked nicely, "How do you do it?" A Thelen general asked him, "How do you make peace where we made only war?" "We care," Sunwoo replied, "about everyone, even our enemies, even people who hate us." It is inefficient. It is irrational. It is also the only way to build something that lasts. The general did not fully understand, but he accepted the peace anyway. On Earth, Selka worked as a liaison between humans and Velkari refugees. She learned human customs. She made human friends. She began to see the galaxy through human eyes. One day, she asked Park Jinho a question that had haunted her since she arrived. "Why did you help us, after everything we did? After my father had you expelled? After we celebrated your departure and destroyed your work? Why did you not let us die?" Ginho thought about the question for a long time. "When your father pronounced our expulsion," he said finally, "I felt hatred. I wanted revenge. I wanted to watch your civilization burn and laugh at your suffering. What changed? I realized that revenge would not make me feel better. It would only make me smaller. If I became cruel and hateful, your father would have one. He would have proven that humans were exactly what he said we were: primitive, aggressive, dangerous." Jinho shook his head. "I would not give him that satisfaction. I would not let his hatred change who I am." "Eh? So you helped us out of spite?" Selka asked, confused. "No," Jinho smiled. "I helped you because helping is what I do. It is what humans do. We cannot see suffering without wanting to fix it. We cannot see problems without wanting to solve them. We cannot see enemies without wondering if they could become friends. He looked at her. Your father called these things weaknesses. He was wrong. They are our greatest strengths. Selka was silent for a long moment. She said finally, Perhaps in some way he does now. Jinho replied. Across the galaxy, civilization was being rebuilt. It was messy and difficult and slow. Old hatreds did not disappear overnight. Old wounds took time to heal. But for the first time in years, there was hope. And at the center of that hope was humanity. The species that had been thrown out. The species that had been called inferior. The species that had proven, through kindness and patience and stubborn refusal to give up, that they were exactly what the galaxy needed, even if the galaxy had not known it. 10 years had passed since humanity was expelled from the Galactic Union. The Union was gone now. Nothing but a memory and a warning. In its place stood something new, something better, something that would have been impossible without the species that had once been thrown away like garbage. The new Galactic Council met on Earth for the first time. Representatives from every surviving species gathered in a great hall built for this moment. Unlike the old council chamber, where aliens had looked down from high seats at those they judged inferior, this hall was designed as a circle. Everyone sat at the same level. Everyone had an equal voice. President Choi Yuna stood at the center. She was in her final term now, her hair fully white, her face lined with age. But her eyes still burned with the fire that had carried humanity through its darkest days. We gather today not as masters and servants, she said, not as superiors and inferiors, not as victors and defeated. We gather as partners, as equals. As friends, she looked around the circle at the alien faces watching her. The old union failed because it was built on fear. Fear of difference. Fear of change. Fear of anything that could not be controlled. That fear led to hatred. That hatred led to destruction. Billions died because the powerful could not accept that they needed help from those they considered lesser. She paused. We will not make that mistake. This new council will be built on trust, on cooperation, on the simple belief that we are stronger together than apart. Some will call this naive. Some will say it cannot work. But we have already proven it can work. We have proven it with every plague we have cured, every war we have ended, every broken world we have helped rebuild. She smiled. We do not want subjects. We want partners. We do not want obedience. We want friendship. We do not want a galaxy where one species rules and others serve. We want a galaxy where every species can contribute its unique gifts, and every species can benefit from the gifts of others. The Council voted unanimously to accept the new charter. For the first time in galactic history, civilization was being built not on conquest or domination, but on genuine cooperation between species. Ambassador Selka watched the vote with tears in her eyes. She had spent the last 5 years working to bridge the gap between Velkari and humans. It had been the hardest work of her life. Many of her people still clung to old beliefs. Many humans still carried old wounds. But slowly, carefully, trust was being built. After the ceremony, she walked through the streets of Earth's capital. Alien children played alongside human children in the parks. Mixed species families walked hand in hand. Restaurants served food from 100 worlds. Music from 1,000 cultures filled the air. This was the galaxy her father had tried to prevent. This was the future he had feared. And it was beautiful. She passed a school where a human teacher was leading a class of alien students. The lesson was about history, about the expulsion, about the collapse, about the rebuilding. The children listened with wide eyes as the teacher explained how hatred had nearly destroyed everything and how compassion had saved it. Why did the humans help us? A young Mora student asked. We hurt them so badly. Why did they not hurt us back? The teacher smiled. Because hurting others does not make pain go away. It only creates more pain. The humans understood that. They understood that the only way to end the cycle of hatred was to choose love instead, even when it was hard, even when others did not deserve it, even when every instinct screamed for revenge. Is that why we learn about it? The student asked, so we do not make the same mistakes? Yes, the teacher said. We learn from the past so we can build a better future. And the most important lesson of all is this: hatred is easy. Anyone can hate. But love takes courage. Love takes strength. Love is the hardest choice we can make, and it is the only choice that matters. Selka continued walking until she reached a memorial plaza at the center of the city. A great statue stood there, surrounded by gardens and reflecting pools. The statue showed humans and aliens standing together, their hands joined. Their faces turned toward the sky. Around the base of the statue were names. Thousands of names. These were the humans who had died during the chaos of the collapse. Diplomats killed when alien governments fell. Doctors who could not reach their patients in time. Soldiers caught in crossfire that was not their fight. Engineers murdered by mobs looking for someone to blame. They had paid the price for alien hatred, and humanity had responded not with revenge but with mercy. Admiral Kungsora stood before the statue. She was an old woman now, her uniform heavy with medals, her face marked by decades of service. She had been asked to give the dedication speech for this year's memorial ceremony. They pushed us out, she said, her voice carrying across the plaza. They called us dangerous. They said we did not belong. They celebrated when we left and laughed at our pain. She looked at the names on the statue. These are the people who paid for that hatred. Good people. Kind people. People who only wanted to help. They died because others could not see past fear and prejudice. They died because difference was treated as a threat instead of a gift. She turned to face the crowd. Humans and aliens stood together, listening. We could have answered their hatred with hatred of our own. We could have let them burn. We could have watched their children starve and said they deserved it, shook her head. But we did not, because that is not who we are. We are human. We feel pain and we keep going. We see suffering and we try to help. We are hurt and we forgive. Her voice grew strong. They pushed us out because they feared what they did not understand. They learned too late that understanding is not the enemy. Fear is. Hatred is. Pride is. These are the enemies of civilization. These are the destroyers of hope. And these are the things we will never let rule us again. The crowd applauded. Human and alien voices joined together in appreciation for words that spoke to all of them. Later that evening, Park Jin-ho sat in the garden of his home on Earth. He was an old man now, his days of diplomacy behind him, but he was not alone. His granddaughter played nearby, chasing butterflies through the flowers. She was 7 years old. Her mother was human. Her father was Thelen. She had her mother's hair and her father's blue skin. She was something that would have been impossible 10 years ago, something that would have been forbidden. Now she was simply a child, loved and cherished, a symbol of everything the new galaxy could be. An old friend came to visit, a Valkyrie male named Torik, who had once been an officer in the Union fleet. He and Jin-ho had been enemies once. Now they shared tea and watched the sunset together. Do you ever regret it? Torik asked. Regret what? Helping us. After everything we did to you? Do you ever wish you would let us suffer? Ginho watched his granddaughter laugh as a butterfly landed on her hand.
Yes.
Sometimes, he admitted, sometimes I still feel anger. Sometimes I still feel pain. The wounds are deep, and they will never fully heal, he smiled. But then I look at her, at my granddaughter, at this world we have built together, and I know we made the right choice. How can you be so certain? Because revenge would have given us nothing but more pain, more death, more darkness. But mercy gave us this. He gestured at the garden, at his granddaughter, at the world beyond. It gave us a future. Torik was silent for a long moment. I am sorry, he said finally, for what my people did, for what I believed, for the hatred I carried in my heart. I know, Jinho replied. I forgave you years ago. How? Torik's voice cracked with emotion. How could you forgive something so terrible? Jinho looked at his old enemy, his old friend. Because forgiveness is not for the person who hurt you. It is for yourself. Carrying hatred is like carrying poison in your heart. It destroys you from the inside. The only way to heal is to let it go. He reached out and touched Torik's hand. I let it go, and I found peace. The sun set over Earth. Stars appeared in the sky, each one a world where humans and aliens now lived and worked together. The galaxy was not perfect. Old prejudices still lingered. Old wounds still ached, but hope was alive. Progress was real, and tomorrow would be better than today. Park Jin-ho watched his granddaughter run through the garden, her laughter filling the air. This was what humanity had fought for. This was what humanity had built. This was what humanity would always protect, not with weapons or anger, but with love, with compassion, with the simple, stubborn belief that everyone deserves a chance to be better. The aliens had pushed humanity out, and humanity had shown them the way home.